Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed at Hitmix 88.9 WEIU.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of my new podcast. I am DJ Apollo, and you are listening to Tales of Music and Film, a podcast that I will be doing over the course of my senior year. For any of you who don't remember, I previously did over 30 episodes with my friend Mark Kodo, aka Kodo Man, on his podcast called Kodo Cinema. And over the course of my junior year, he inspired me to want to start my own podcast. So here we are today with episode 1. And with this podcast, I will be discussing and going over some amazing rock and roll albums over the course of rock history. And I will also be doing reviews of some of my favorite and other amazing movies. So I'm really excited to get this started. And I thought, with this being the very first episode, I thought it would be a good idea to do this topic over a very famous rock and roll album as a way of introducing myself, because the album, which we will be discussing today, is one of my favorite, if not my favorite album of all time, and that is AC/DC's Back in Black. Now, I'm sure for any of you music fans out there, the Back in Black album is like one of the most recognizable albums ever made. You can't go to a record store without seeing it somewhere, or you go to the record section at your local Walmart, it's always going to be found somewhere in the CD section, on the vinyl section, you name it. This album, over 40 years later after its release, has had one of the biggest impacts of all time, and is currently the second most sold record in rock history, selling millions upon millions of copies. And it's just, I often think of this album as the Jaws of the music history, because the magic that this record captures is just one of those things that could never ever be replicated or copied ever again. This album is just what this band managed to capture on this album is just pure magic in and of itself. And to get started, so the Back in Black album is the 7th studio album by the Australian rock band AC/DC. It was released on July 25th, 1980 by Albert Productions and Atlantic Records. It is the band's first album to feature their brand new lead singer Brian Johnson following the death of their previous lead singer Bon Scott. Now, with that in mind, I will be discussing for a minute the little bit of history that led up to this album being recorded. So AC/DC formed in 1973, and you have the lineup as followed. You had Bon Scott on the vocals. You had Angus Young on the lead guitar. You have Malcolm Young on the rhythm guitar. You got Phil Rudd on the drums. And then their original bassist was named Mark Evans. And eventually he was kicked out after they recorded Let There Be Rock. And then Cliff Williams joined the band in 1978. And then right after he joined, they recorded their 5th album labeled Power Age in 1978. So that is the band lineup, and they spent the last 6 years, so from 73 to 79, they were just shooting out sparks, releasing albums, doing tours, just waiting for that moment, for that one record that would skyrocket their career into becoming the next big band. And then in the summer of 79, they finally did it with their 6th album release, Highway to Hell. And this was the album that made them A+, band quality. Like, when this record was released, they were one of the biggest bands ever. This is the one that skyrocketed them into fame. The album was a huge hit. So good, in fact, that when they finished the tour at the end of 79, they were very nervous because how do we top this, You'll notice with a lot of bands and famous artists that it becomes very difficult to follow up such a big, successful album. Like, there's so much pressure that you're under to make a follow-up album to that. So the entire tour was magnificent. They toured with all kinds of amazing bands. Like, they got to tour with Aerosmith, Deep Purple. Like, they got to tour with so many amazing big groups. Like, this was it. Everybody knew their name now. And they're all ready to go to start writing a follow-up album. But then, unexpectedly, their lead singer, Bon Scott, went out drinking a day before they were scheduled to go into the studio to start, writing and recording the follow-up album. It was around February of 1980. Bon had went out drinking with a friend just to blow off some steam, kind of get the creative juices flowing. And when Bon finished up his drinking, his friend drove him back, and Bon had fallen asleep in the car. Then the friend just left him in the car to sleep the drink off, which was a very, very bad move because this was in February in London, I think it was, so it was like freezing cold out. So I don't know what his friend was thinking, leaving him in the car like that. And also keep in mind, Bon was laying back, like he had the seat, laying back all the way, so he was laying down basically. And in the morning, when his friend came out to get him, he was found dead in the car. What happened was he had vomited during his sleep and choked to death due to the position he was sleeping in. And that was it, Bon was dead, and this hit all the band members. I'm talking like it hit them hard because the five of them were like, when you're like, my dad, helped me realize this because him and I are huge fans of music. Bands are basically they're basically family. You're together, 1 to 2 years touring, writing music together. You're a family. So when someone dies, it hits you like a baseball bat to the stomach. And Bon's death was just completely out of nowhere. Everything was fine. They were all ready to go. And then boom, everything just went south instantaneously. So what do we do now? The band was extremely close to breaking up, like the Beatles break up. Like they got close. But at Bon's funeral, his parents actually begged Angus and Malcolm to continue the band because AC/DC was formed by the Young brothers, Angus and Malcolm Young. They were the youngest siblings out of the family, and they wanted to start their own band, and they were influenced by their brother George, who started his own band called the Easy Beats. And George would end up becoming their producer of their first albums. He produced every AC/DC album up until Power Age. After that, the band had their Highway to Hell album produced by producer Mutt Lange, and he would go on to produce the Back in Black album, and For Those About to Rock, We Salute You as well. So Bon's parents pulled Malcolm and Angus aside and told them, listen guys, you gotta find a new singer and carry on. Don't break up the band, just keep going. Because they knew Bon would have wanted them to keep going. So once they got Bon's parents' blessing, they were like, all right, let's keep it going. So then they started handing out auditions for new singers. They had went through a couple, but none of them clicked. Because the problem is, from what I remember, a lot of them were impersonating Bon too much. They want a brand new singer, someone with completely different kind of vocals, different kind of mannerisms and stuff. And then they found out about a guy who was a member of a band called Geordie, who made a lot of noise for a while, and their lead singer was a man named Brian Johnson. And Geordie was together for a while. They were a very successful group. They had a lot of amazing hits, and funny enough, Bon had actually seen them perform live at a tavern, and Bon liked them so much. This is a true statement. He actually, when he got back with the band, the following day or something, he literally told them, listen guys, if something were to happen to me, I want you to get this singer named Brian Johnson, because he's got some killer vocals, and it's just the future was set to happen no matter what, just crazy. So they asked Brian to come in to audition. A lady had called him up on a phone and let him know about how they want him to come in and rehearse. So he drove down and met them, and they did a couple of songs together, and they covered the first song that Brian sang with AC/DC was a song by Tina Turner, and then they covered Whole Lotta Rosie, which was the ending song off of the Let There Be Rock album from 1977. And then after they finished up with that, like the band had this feeling that Brian was just the right guy. They liked his singing, they liked his attitude, the way he was, so they were like, all right, he's the guy, let's get to work. So that was when they decided to start working on the Back in Black album, and they actually decided to change it up. They wanted to do something that could help welcome Brian into the band, so they actually flew to the Bahamas to use a recording studio down there, because they thought it would be a nice little getaway, to have some fun and to incorporate Brian into the band and let him get to know everybody. So they went down to a studio in the Bahamas to record the album, and Angus and Malcolm and Brian Johnson actually ended up writing all the lyrics to all the songs, because Angus and Malcolm were also the songwriters for the band, and Brian wrote songs too up until I think it was like the late 80s or early 90s when Angus and Malcolm decided that it'd be best if they were the ones who wrote the music. But for the Back in Black album, Brian helped write the lyrics. Like, for example, him and a producer were in one of the rooms one night during a massive storm trying to think of the lyrics for what would become the opening song, Hell's Bells. Listening to the riffs, trying to think Brian gets the groove of the song, but he doesn't know what to write for the lyrics. And during this, there is a massive storm going on outside, and lightning strikes, and then it starts raining. Then Brian's like, oh, rolling thunder, pouring rain, I'm coming on like a hurricane, my lightning's flashing across the sky. Then it just kept going on from there, and that's where he got the idea to write the lyrics for Hell's Bells, which is one of their hits, which was the opening song off the album. Now, I'm telling you right now, Hell's Bells is one of the most iconic rock songs of all time. Every time I listen to this album, when you hear, it's just the first track, you just hear a bell ringing in the background over and over again. Then you hear Angus and Malcolm's guitar riff slowly fading in. It gets louder and louder. Then boom, you hear the bass, the drums and everything. Then you just hear Brian come in with these strong, just extremely loud vocals, just yelling his lungs out, putting everything he's got into his vocals. Just it gives me chills every single time. There is just something about it. And when they were writing this album, the idea was they wanted to turn all the pain and suffering they went through with Bond, they wanted to, vent out everything that they had just went through onto this album. They wanted to turn tragedy into triumph. And my gosh, did they do it. So now that they got the Hell's Bells lyrics, another hit song on this album, which this next track I'm about to say, you'll know it instantly. Shoot to Thrill. Now, Shoot to Thrill is one of the most iconic songs as well. It's I'm pretty sure this song was probably used in every action movie known to man. It's for example, this song was brilliantly used in Avengers 1 when Tony Stark makes his grand entrance in the first Avengers movie. Cap's fighting Loki in Germany. Natasha's in a ship trying to get Loki to surrender. And then out of nowhere on the ship's radio, you just hear Tony go, "Hey, Agent Ronoff, did you miss me?" And then Shoot to Thrill just starts playing, and Tony just comes flying in, shoots Loki with his guns that are on the Iron Man suit. It's just it's so good. Just what a perfect song to use for his intro. And this song is so iconic. There's other examples that I could use, and the influence behind this particular song was that there was a Back in Black documentary I used to watch on YouTube, but it got taken down, unfortunately. But when Angus was talking about his influence for Shoot to Thrill, he was talking about one of his biggest influences was The Good and the Bad and the Ugly with Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, Lee Van Cleef. He often imagined about the final draw at the end of the movie, or just any of the gun scenes throughout that Western, where they're shooting at each other, everything's loud like this, and then about halfway through the song, you get this quiet little moody part, and I believe that's supposed to be like, all right, everybody's calming down. We're taking a breather. The gunmen are staring each other down. They're getting ready to draw. Like, it's slow, and then it starts to build up more and more, and then it gets back into the main chorus again. It just builds up from there. The whole song could literally be used for a build up of an action sequence. It's insane, Too many women with too many pills. I said, shoot to thrill, and I'm ready to kill. It's just, it's so good. Like, you could literally listen to this song when you're working out at a gym. It just, it gets you, pumped. Like you're just ready to go out and kick some butt when you listen to this. Just, oh, man, it gives you, this huge, adrenaline rush. That's what it does to me when I listen to this. When I listen to the tracks off this album. So that was the influence for Shoot to Thrill. And it's think about it. This album is so huge. Literally the first two opening tracks are literally one of the most iconic songs ever written, and used in so many amazing movies. The other amazing thing about this album for Back in Black, there is not one bad track on this album. There's 10 songs. You have Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, What Do You Do for Money, Giving the Dog a Bone, Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long, Have a Drink on Me, Shake a Leg, Rock and Roll, A Noise Pollution, and Let Me Put My Love Into You. That's it. So those are the 10 songs. And let me tell you, all 10 tracks are so iconic. It's one of those rare things. It's really rare for a band to release an album where every track stands out. I think you don't see that very often. I believe one of bands who have done that, AC/DC, Metallica, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Queen, and the Beatles. Those are the only 5 that I could think of. I don't think those bands have written one bad song. Like I said, all 10 tracks on this are magnificent. So another song that really stands out, and this next song I'm about to talk about is one of the most used songs of all time. And this song is their most played song on the radio, Back in Black. Literally, people who don't listen to music know about this song. Back in Black has been used in how many movies? It's there's no way to tell. This song is everywhere. I'm pretty sure that Back in Black is played on the radio every day. It is their most played song, and I think it's one of the most amazing songs ever written, ever. And what's cool is the riff for this song, the ba ch ba ba ch ba ba ch ba da da. That riff was created by Malcolm during the Highway to Hell tour. When they were backstage, getting the guitars all tuned up. He had some time to kill, so he was messing around with this riff that he came up with. And Angus liked it a lot, so Malcolm kept it stored away in the archives and saved it for later for the next album. And this song, when you listen to the lyrics, Angus and Malcolm wrote this song around the good times they had with Bon. When you listen to if you look at the lyrics for this, it's just a mixture of memories that they made together onto the album. Riding around in a Cadillac, getting a drink, or living the fast life or something. It's just them recounting all the good times they had with one of their greatest friends. And that's so cool, that, they're venting out all their happiness and sadness at the same time and to this music. And I think that's what makes this album so powerful. This whole thing is just a tribute to a friend. And that to me is just so magnificent and just beautiful. So yeah, Back in Black, most played song on the radio. It's even non-music lovers, they know it. It's AC/DC, what's the first song you would think of? Most likely that one. Now we cut to one of my favorite songs of all time, You Shook Me All Night Long. Now, this one is on the same level as Back in Black, even though I'm really confused. This song, it only got to 35 on the US charts when this album came out. I'm really? This is the best song on the album, in my opinion. It did do really well. It was a huge hit. You Shook Me All Night Long. Back in the 80s, literally, you couldn't go to one party without hearing this on the radio or wherever, you know, like this song, like You Shook Me All Night Long is literally like the party song. Literally the whole theme of that song is partying and dancing with a girl. Like that's literally the whole point of the song. And I love it. It's such a good party song. Like the whole album, in my personal opinion, is a party album. You can just listen to this and just have fun with your friends. It's literally the perfect background music for a get together or a party. It enhances the experience by a lot. So Brian Johnson wrote the lyrics for this particular song, and the story behind the idea for this song is so funny to me. So like, Brian, he had some time to kill in his hotel room in the Bahamas, so he's just sitting there watching TV, and he found a channel where it was basically a Playboy channel, and you had all these American girls wearing, you know, these tight outfits with, you know, like looking gorgeous, you know, like apparently they had like big thighs, you know, you get the idea. And Brian was watching this, and it helped him come up with the lyric ideas for this particular song. I just think that's so funny. It's just the way you learn about how some songs came to be. I just find that so hilarious to me. So that gave him the idea right there in the lyrics, you know. She was a fast machine. She kept her motor clean. She was the best dang woman I had ever seen. Had the sightless eyes, telling me no lies, knocking me out with those American thighs. You know, just there you go. And what's funny is Mutt Lange actually wanted them to do the song slower, and they tried that. And it just didn't sound right, you know. It was just like this song, like Mutt's like, you know what, do it the other way, because this song is meant to be like a fast-paced track. It's like 3.5 minutes, and you're like, this song goes by so darn quick. Because this whole thing, it literally, when you listen to this track, it's like you injected yourself with something, but you didn't. It goes by in like the blink of an eye. You're like, wait, that's it? It's just, it didn't overstay its welcome. It's just like the song knows when to end. It was just a quick little adrenaline rush. That's it. Amazing song. Just amazing song. And now we cut to a song that was another, it wasn't exactly a hit, but you can't go to a tavern anywhere in the world without hearing this song, and that is Have a Drink on Me. Now, this song is literally a tribute to Bond. Like, you know, Bond was a huge drinker, you know, have a drink on me. And when they wrote the lyrics for this, like, when you listen to this song, the way Brian sings it, it's like, you can imagine, like, he's just basically saying, like, Bond, thank you so much for this amazing, like, when I listen to this, I can just imagine Brian telling Bond, thank you for this amazing opportunity, and I will not let you down. I'm going to fill your shoes the best I can. I raise a glass to you, my friend. Like, that's literally what this song is. Like, I can just imagine, like, maybe like a friend, like you're missing a friend who passed away. You're in the bar with other friends, and you all just raise a toast to whoever it was that passed. That's what Have a Drink on Me just makes me think of. You know, it's just like it makes you think of loved ones who are no longer with us, but you're moving forward, but you're honoring their memories. Just that's what that song does for me. It's such a beautiful song. The whole thing is just the band, let's raise a toast to our fallen friend Bon Scott. It hits you in the feels. It really does. You know, as you're listening to it, I'm on sour mash and cheap wine. So join me for a drink, boys. We're gonna make a big noise. Don't worry about tomorrow. Take it today. Forget about the check. We'll pay for it later. You know, it's a really a feel good, you know? And you could say that about all the tracks as well. It makes you feel good. It really does. And then we cut to the 10th and last song. I'm not going to be covering every song on this album because frankly, that'd be extremely boring. I'm just going over the ones that really stand out and what people remember and the ones that made the most impact. And the ending song on this album, track number 10, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. Now, originally, the band wanted to do only 9 tracks. Track number 9, Shake a Leg, was meant to be the ending song on this album. But But on the previous album, Highway to Hell, which is also a 10-track album, the ending song was called Night Prowler, and it had this really slow pace. Like everything else was really quick, then this was a lot slower. So the producers were like, could we get just one more track on this album, and it needs to be the slow song. So literally Angus and Malcolm just kind of sat around with the guitars for a while. And then like 15 minutes later, they came up with the riff for the song. It's just 15 minutes, and they wrote that. They had the lyrics ready to go, and that was it. They just recorded it after a few takes. And this track is particularly funny to me because on the album, if you listen to the song, you can hear Brian messing around in the background. You can hear him lighting up a cigarette because in interviews, he has stated during the intro, he had no idea, like, what do I do? And Angus and Malcolm are like, just mess around. Like, just do what makes you happy. So like Brian's just walking around, just waiting for his cue, and then he just lights a cigarette, takes a few smokes. Like literally on the album, you just hear him go, "Hey there, all you middlemen, throw away your fancy clothes, and why you out there setting off fence? So come on, get down here, cause rock and roll ain't no riddle, man." I just think it's so funny. He's just sitting there smoking a cigarette, then he just starts singing. That's just so cool. You can hear him lighting it up. It really like makes the intro like that much cooler than me. I love it. I love that. And it's really a good song. And the lyrics behind it was that, around this time, there were a lot of talks going around, like is rock music like really, quote, good for you? Does it make you a bad person? Does it heighten negative aspects of people? All that nonsense. Like there were a lot of like social groups, if you will, who tried to like shut down the pubs and all the bars and places where bands would go to play because so many people thought that rock music was bad for you. It made you a terrible person, especially like super religious people. They wanted nothing to do with it. They wanted it gone. And Angus and Malcolm were like, hold on, who the heck do you think you are? You think you can just get rid of rock and roll? No, sorry. Rock and roll ain't noise pollution, man. And that's the idea behind this song. And when you're listening to this track, like what I get from it, it's basically AC/DC saying, hey, we're still here. We're not going anywhere. We're just getting started. And we got a long way to go. And we got nowhere else to go. We're going to continue writing our music. We're here. We are here to stay, man. That's what I get when I listen to that song. That's literally what they're telling people. It's like we went through some tragedy, but hey, did you miss us? We're back. It's so amazing. I love it so much. And that's it. Those are the tracks. And then once all the songs were recorded and ready to go, they took the album back to, I believe, Electric Lady Studios in New York City is where they mixed the album together. Malcolm, during an interview, I'll never forget this. He was talking about how like when he went in to record the album, like the guy in charge of mixing it, like he was listening to all the tracks. He turns around and looks at Malcolm and goes, "Man, this is a hot album from start to finish." When they were mixing this together, Malcolm and him could sense like, we're making history right now. Like when the band got back together again to hear the finished product, they could not believe how insanely good this album was. The power, the energy, the guitar riffs, the vocals, they put everything into it. They went all out and it was worth it. Like they were just stunned on what they just captured with this. The album was released in the summer of 1980, and then it went on to sell 50 million copies worldwide, and is the second best-selling album in music history. The band supported the album with a year-long world tour, cementing them among the most popular music acts of the early 1980s. And you're like, can you really, like, is that even genuinely a surprise? Like, I'm genuinely not surprised by this. Like, the album also received positive critical reputation during its initial release, and it has since been included on numerous lists of greatest albums. Like, come on. It's like, really? Like, it was meant to be. It was happening. Since its original release, the album has been reissued and remastered multiple times, most recently for distributing digitally. And like, as of December 9th, 2019, this is 3 years ago, mind you, it was certified 25X Platinum by the Recording Industry Association of America. 25 Platinum. Think about that. It platinumed 25 times. Like, that is insane. Like, name the amount of albums. It's like, okay, if you reach that, you're like on a whole nother level of album and songwriting. If you reach that level, your album having that big of an impact. Now, that is something to really be proud of for the rest of your life. That is just unheard of. And it was just unpredictable success, you know, and like, no one knew. It's like, literally, this album, like, the band took a dangerous risk with this, because it's like, do we continue with a new lead singer? How will our fans react to this? We don't know. Like, they took a risk, and it was so worth it. You know, like, another story for you, like, when they did their very first show, it was in a hangar area. Brian was so nervous because this is the first time he was going to be singing some of Bond's songs, like Let There Be Rock, Whole Lotta Rosie, TNT. All these songs that people are used to Bond to singing. Like, will the fans accept him as the new lead singer and him singing Bond's songs? Like, this was insane. And in interviews, he talks about, you know, he's walking around on stage when they were setting everything up, and all around the arena, there were posters of Bond saying R.I.P. Bon Scott. And then he looks straight ahead, right in the middle. There's a banner that says R.I.P. Bon Scott. Underneath it, text says, Good luck, Brian. The minute he saw that poster, he was ready. He knew he had it in him. He could do it. And he went out there and he screamed his lungs out for however long the show went. And then that was it. He was the new lead singer ever since. And like 40-some years later, the band is still growing strong. 2 years ago in 2020, they released their brand new album, Power Up. I was originally going to cover the Power Up album, but then I was like, no, I think I'll save that for another time. But 40 years later, this album is still doing extremely well. Like, I own Back in Black on CD and vinyl. I've listened to it. I'm pretty sure I've listened to it daily for the past, 5 years. This album has had such an impact on my life. We all have that thing that we turn to brighten our days, to make us feel better. And for me, it's either music or film. Music particularly really speaks to me. If I ever have a really bad day, and I've had some really bad days, as do we all, when I put that record on my turntable in my bedroom, I'm just sitting at my desk listening to this record, and the music really speaks to me. It makes me feel happy to be alive. I listen to this, the message that I get, everything is going to be okay. You're here. You're alive, you're living your life, everything's cool. No matter how against the system you are, it's okay. Everything is going to work out. Just sit back, relax, have some fun. That's what it says to me. Just have fun. Be you, live your life the way you want to, and most importantly, be yourself and have fun. That's what this album does for people. And it's just wow, man. I applaud AC/DC. It's just, I wish I could meet them and just tell them. It's like, if someone were to ask me, okay, if you could meet one band and you could only say a few things to them, what would you say? I'd be like, AC/DC, guys, thank you so much for making this album. You guys have had the biggest impact on my life. This album has gotten me through the hardest of times. Just thank you, And this album is going to be remembered for generations to come. I just can't wait to see what this album is going to do in the next 40 years. No one's gonna forget it. It just, like I said, it speaks to people, and it's lightning captured in a bottle. There is no way, the follow-up album to Back in Black was For Those About to Rock, We Salute You in 1981, and it was good, but it got nowhere near what this album covered. And it's like the band knew it. It's physically impossible. There are certain things that you just can't follow up. It's like trying to make a sequel to Jaws that'll top it, which is physically impossible. Like I said, this album is the Jaws of music. What this thing captured, it will never, ever, ever, ever be recaptured ever again, ever. This album is a true example of what happens when you turn a very sad tragedy into triumph. And the album, in my opinion, has one of the most iconic covers of all time. It's just a plain black cover with the band's logo all in white as a sign of mourning. But when you turn this album on, it's the band just celebrating the life of one of their greatest friends and their original front man. And it's perfect. I can just imagine wherever Bon is, he had the biggest smile on his face with what they did with this record. And we are now at the end of this recording, and I'm so excited for future episodes. It's going to be one heck of a year, and I can't wait to make more recordings for all you amazing listeners. I have a massive, amazing journey ahead of me, and we just completed the very first episode. I'm so excited getting to do this. Oh man, I got so many amazing ideas. I can't wait to get started. So I just want to personally thank to whoever is listening to this. Just thank you for being a friend, and thank you for this amazing opportunity. Let's keep this amazing journey rolling, shall we? So, like I always say, you stay classy out there, and I will see all of you in the next episode. Till then, this is DJ Apollo here on Tales of Music and Film.